Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. Today we're going to be talking all about the workforce, changes in the workforce, trends. And with that, I've got a special guest, Scott Rupp. He's the author of I Quit, Winning the War for Top Talent. I had previous guests talk about this whole notion of the changing workforce and changing demographics. And I'm really excited to have thought leaders on the show. So Scott, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Great show.
Yeah, thank you. And kind of tell people your background and your story, and we'll dive right into it.
I came from the world of business, obviously. Started off, I founded a couple of businesses, built them up, sold them off, and then realized my passion was politics. Got into politics at a young age, served 4 years in the Missouri House of Representatives at the age of 27, then became the youngest state senator in Missouri's history. And at one point, I was 41 years old and the most senior member of the Missouri State Senate, which was kind of weird being the most senior person and only being 41. Ran for statewide office thinking this is where I'm supposed to be. And then, life kind of just taught me a lesson of, hey, you can't continue at this pace. So I kind of had to stop a little bit and look at the sustainability of my life. And so what I did is I started to research sustainability and I applied it to people. And then when I started applying it to people, I was really able to tap into growing organizations and helping create sustainable employees. And so now I'm a professional speaker, and then the book just came out, I Quit, Winning the War for Top Talent, which dives into this huge paradigm shift of what's going on in the labor force, what's going on, why things are different, and if you're a business owner, what you need to do to prepare to be successful in this new labor paradigm.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I said "fu" to the corporate workforce back in 2008 when Lehman Brothers collapsed to create my own thing. And what was interesting was, I saw 2020 before it even came. I didn't even know it was going to come in the form of a pandemic, but I just saw people like not engaged and just kind of scraping by and just kind of, playing drama and politics. So kind of talk about this idea of this workforce. And one thing is you talk about work wars, the revenge of the worker. And I love this.
I mean, kind of interesting what you said. I mean, Lehman Brothers collapsed, and it kind of puts you out of your routine. And what we find is that people don't really make any changes in their life unless they have a significant emotional event. I mean, you go to the doctor and he says, "Hey, quit smoking, lose weight, exercise." You don't. Next year he says, "Quit weight, quit smoking, exercise." You don't do anything until you have a heart attack. And then you're like, whoa. So a lot of times it takes something big, a significant emotional event, to get people out of their rut. And like what you were saying with Lehman Brothers, what really happened for the entire workforce was the COVID shutdowns. I mean, actually, I just was looking. A new article came out from 4 days ago from the American Psychological Association that says the pandemic has caused a collective trauma amongst adults. And really what it did is it caused trauma, and it gave a significant emotional event for people to reevaluate what's important, reevaluate why do I do what I do, and reevaluate, is this really what I want? And then that's when people started to change. You saw the Great Resignation, where people started withholding labor from the labor force. You saw people doing their own thing, creating their own businesses. And so it's that whole collective mindset shifting of what workers are thinking about. Why am I driving 45 minutes to work every day when I can do the same job sitting at my kitchen table? So this is what's really caused this paradigm shift, was the quietness of the pandemic that made people kind of stop and think about, why am I here?
Yeah. And the other thing is talking about this because, talking about other guests and some of the frustrations is you see, corporate CEOs, they're commingling with politicians and kind of just accumulating just for themselves, just at the expense of other people. You can see that when the great financial crisis.
Right.
You can see it. And then also you talk about, people. So essentially workers said, take this job and shove it, a collective up yours from labor to management.
Yes.
I love that.
I mean, that's really what it is people kind of started to reevaluate their life and say, why am I giving so much time to this organization whom, if I get hit by a bus, they're going to have my advertisement for my position up and running before I've even been embalmed. I mean, it's like, boom, you're just a number to a lot of, and so people started to decide, am I leaving my kids for this? And a collective up yours was kind of what the Great Resignation was we're not going to do this anymore. And the paradigm shift used to be, hey, the CEO can do this and he can commingle this and he can treat people like crap and the company can do this. There's always going to be another worker to fill it. But what we've seen now is the collective labor market has said, no, 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 we're not going to deal with this anymore. We're withholding our labor because we want something better. And that's a big paradigm shift to where now CEOs, they have to start paying attention to things that they've never paid attention to before. It was always bottom line, bottom line. Now they're having to pay attention to, I mean, how are we getting the top talent? How are what's our retention rate? Stuff they used to farm out to HR. Now that's like number one dashboard on the CEOs now is their labor force, which is a huge change from 10 years ago.
Yeah. The other, I give talks to students and groups, and one of the key questions is, one of the top questions is, do I need to go to college? And then the second question is, after I graduate, do I want to go work for a company or do I want to go start a company? Those are the two options, and it's quite interesting because, back in my days, it was always you're gonna profession or go work for a company. Yeah,
and you're exactly right. You've seen post-pandemic, you've seen the number of new business starts just skyrocket. For a lot of people who are like, hey, I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to do that. And then you're also seeing, the pricing out of people in college of, hey, why should I go into $200,000 of debt, for a job that's going to pay me $40,000 a year? And a lot of times it's just so really, and then you're seeing the labor market say, hey, we need electricians, we need carpenters, we need this. And so the pay for those positions is going up because there's not that many in the labor market. So you're seeing the labor market get really strong, as far as getting higher wages in key positions. And you're even seeing it in the rise of unions. I mean, unions used to be, very unpopular at their lowest stages. And they've had a resurgence in the last couple of years because people are looking for something more out of their employment than what they have been getting. And if the employer isn't providing it, the union starts to look kind of attractive.
Yeah. Would you bring up this idea of unions, because there's a Walgreens, CVS, pharmacist strike. There was a Kaiser strike. There was there was an automobile strike. There was what else was there? There was like Hollywood strike.
Right.
And so this conversation would be amiss without mentioning AI because for example, just kind of example, my business, went from editors and employees to more like software and AI, right. And a lot of business owners, if you don't use AI, you're kind of in trouble now. So how is AI changing the landscape? If COVID wasn't enough.
AI is going to change the landscape massively, but we've already kind of seen that because it's just another level of creative destruction, which is inherent in capitalism. Is technology is going to cause creative destruction. You've seen it with, look at what the iPhone did. Look at, you said Lehman Brothers, you used to walk on there, used to be a trading floor with all these people trading. Now it's all done by computers and it's a ghost town. So we've seen this technology continually to happen and, to just creatively destroy certain industries, but other ones have popped up. So, I know a lot of people ring the alarm bells of, hey, AI is going to take our jobs and stuff. But you can say the same thing about the internet. You can say the same thing about, cell phones and everything, all the way back to, the automobile replacing the horses and the carriage and the footmen and everything. But that is capitalism. It's creative destruction at its best. And that's why it's important that companies and leaders of organizations have to make sure that they're keeping it simple, that they are focusing on what they're good at and do it and execute greatly, attract the right people, treat them well. Because with this creative destruction, if you are not, hitting all cylinders, then, you're easily going to be overtaken in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, which brings me to the question of, regulation. And also this question would be amiss without mentioning the government, because government, whenever they see technology and kind of this impingement and kind of more democratization and more freedom, they come in and either try and ban it or
True.
they try and pick winners. And what is the government's role in all of this?
No, well, I mean, for a lot of times, it's better if government stays out for the most part, because they do end up being very reactionary. And then they end up picking winners and losers, exactly like you said. And I mean, I served 20 some years in politics, and it's the ones that have access, the ones that, I mean, just take a look at the cryptocurrency market. You had Sam Bankman-Fried, who was committing the biggest fraud in that whole market, was really cozy with the SEC coming up with friendly, regulations for the crypto market that was going to, obviously benefit themselves. And so those with money, those with access, tend to be the ones writing the rules and regulations. It maybe isn't the best for the consumer or best for the industry, and maybe it's just best for a few. And when I was in politics, we would spend 30% of our time fixing the stuff that we did the year before or the year before that, because of all the unintended consequences. And granted, a lot of these people, I mean, I was one of them. Just because you win an election doesn't mean you know crap about, whatever it is you're trying to regulate and stuff. So then it's, who are you listening to? So
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I have a colleague of mine. He runs a Substack, and he was talking about, because he worked in DC, and he said, it's just basically backroom deals and corruption, kind of bribes and favors, trading favors, which is interesting because when we were talking about like the big winners, kind of you look at the like the S&P and the Dow Jones and NASDAQ, like the key winners this year are only a handful of companies
Right.
making up the majority of gains. Go ahead.
No, I mean, you're spot on. I mean, it's the handful of a few companies that are driving the market. And when you get into politics, it's who have access. It's not all bribery or corruption, but it's who has access and who has built the relationship and who has paid and who has the lobbyist and who has the time. The average guy working on Main Street trying to build his business, I mean, he doesn't have time to do that. But you get the big corporations that can have giant government relations teams. They're gonna drive the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of talk about the your book and kind of talk about, the kind of key psychological reasons behind changing attitudes and what led you to write the book. And we'll get more into it.
Yeah, sure. So, what led me to write the book was, I mean, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was running statewide, running businesses, family, 5 kids, and the only time that my world was quiet was 5 a.m. And that was when I was in the shower, and I'd have like 10 minutes where the world was quiet. And I would just be in there, and this phrase would repeat in my mind. It would literally start in this side of my brain and just go across the forehead like a ticker tape. And it would simply say, simplify your life, simplify your life. And so my brain was quiet. Everything was quiet. And that was what it was telling me was, I can't take this anymore. So I had to figure out, how do you simplify your life? I mean, that's impossible to do, especially. So I did what I always did, is I ignored it and I pushed right on through, and I kept overstimulating and overworking and everything. But I did have a blessing in my life, is that I lost my statewide election by 0.7%. And so I am so thankful for those people that voted against me, because it got me out of a toxic environment, and it helped me to take a step back and reevaluate my life, what I want, what kind of relationship do I want with my kids, what do I want to leave behind. And so that's when I really started looking for something more sustainable. That's when I decided to write the book. Then when the pandemics came around, I started watching everybody around me go through the same thing I had went through 10 years earlier. And I started to dive into the psychology of it. My wife's a mental health counselor, and so she got really deep into the brain. We started talking about trauma and PTSD and why do people act the way they do after they've had trauma. And, they start to look for different meanings and things. And so it was just this eye-opening experience of what the entire country and the world was going through. I mean, some people had trauma within traumas. Imagine if you had the lockdowns. What if you lost a family member? You couldn't go visit them. What if you lost your job at the same time? And PTSD changes our brain makeup. It changes how we think, how we approach problems. And so we started to see this playing out. It's still playing out. I mean, they just did the survey, the American Psychological Association, and basically said, hey, the United States has collective trauma. And so that's what led me to write the book, is so people would understand this is where your employees are. So if you don't know where they are, how can you meet them and give them what they need? And then the second half of the book is all about giving your employees what they need, understanding their trauma, understanding what they're happening, what we need to do. And then you tie in, you got millennials, you got younger generations that are making up the bulk of the workforce now. Most of the CEOs are boomers or older, or maybe Gen X like me. That creates a weird dynamic of culture clashes within the workforce.
I love that. And kind of a two-pronged question is, how do you hope it'll impact the way leaders approach talent management? And what advice would you give leaders who are struggling to retain top talent in today's competitive job market?
Yeah, I mean, so if I had to say an overarching thing is you got to get to know your employees. And I don't mean just get to know, oh, hey, it's Bob from accounting and he has 2 kids and he lives in the suburb. No, you got to get to understand, who they are, what motivates them, what is their learning style. I mean, everybody has different type of, what is Bob's learning style? How does Bob want to be appreciated? What's his style of appreciation? And so until you understand all these things about the people that you're supposedly leading, you're not going to be able to understand what they need. And that's what the big disconnect is between what employees, need and what the employer thinks they need. And so it's a huge disconnect. So getting to know them using behavioral analytics, understanding the personalities on the teams you're building and how they work together and what they need. I mean, for an example, I walked in my office today and there's a young lady, awesome. But if I don't say hi to her, she will think that I'm upset with her. And she will internalize it her whole day and she will fret about it and her work product just goes down. But I know that about her. And I know that I have to stop and say, hey, how are you? How was your weekend? And stuff like that. It means the world to her, that 1 or 2 minute interaction. And then she's a rock star. But her personality is that she's going to internalize that if she thinks something is wrong. I know that about her. And I know what I need to do to lead her to get the best out of that. And so there's a lot of things that really people have to understand about what people are needing inside their own companies right now. And so that's cute. The second thing is, the one tip for leaders is quit trying to be the most interesting person in the room and become the most interested person in the room. That is when my leadership went to the next level. I always was like, oh, I want to talk to that guy. Oh, this guy. And I had an agenda when I walked into the room and, I can wow this person. Now it's like, who can I dive into and learn about more? And who in my team can I dive and learn about more rather than telling them some great thing that I did or what TV show I was on or something of that nature. So quit being interesting and become interested. That's a huge thing for leaders.
I love that. I think, that key, it's worth the entire convo. And then lastly is, kind of we have closing, looking back at your long political career, what surprised you the most and how can people find the book and reach out to you?
Well, what surprises me most after my long political career is the number of people that I know that are in or have served in federal prison. So it is kind of shocking. That's not what I went into this with such grandiose, all these are wonderful people we should put on a pedestal. Yeah, and it's not the case. The whole environment is toxic and it does take good people and lead them astray. So that's always the thing. But by knowing that, by knowing what the true nature of people are and understanding who they are and how they work and their personality and what they're looking for, what they're needing, I'm able to lead them better and stuff by understanding, okay, this is, and you can see toxic relationships starting to form in your organization. And if you can head those off, then you can really save people from damaging your company and damaging themselves.
I love that. What a fantastic way to end it. And looks like check out for all the audience out there, check out Scott's website. He's got all of his social media, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. And thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Hey, I appreciate it. And just to go to Amazon, the book is I Quit, Winning the War for Top Talent. Love to get your thoughts, leave a review, would really love to hear and just reach out to me and keep the conversation going. But Doctor, thanks so much. You've really been a great host.
Yeah, I loved it. And I'm going to check it out as well. And the link to the book will be in the show notes as well.
Awesome.